What's the best Mega Man game ever released? And if you answer anything other than Mega Man X, you'll need to watch this video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Retro Games in Rally English. My name is Juho Kuorikoski, I'm a Finnish journalist and a non-fiction author, and I'm here to talk about old games in my very Finnish English. Some people have reached out and asked that will I cover console games? The answer is yes, and in this video we will be talking about one of the best side-scrolling platformers released in the 1990s. The game is of course Capcom's legendary Mega Man X, a franchise that started on Super Nintendo and later was continued on PlayStations 1 and 2. Mega Man X was a more edgier version of the Prime series, but the game itself made some radical reforms on the classic Mega Man gameplay. And thanks to this, Mega Man X is, in my opinion, the best Mega Man game ever released. But there are many reasons for this, so as usual we need to take a closer look.
Mega Man X was released by Capcom in 1993 for Super Nintendo. The game is a side-scrolling action platformer in the vein of the original Mega Man. The titular character Mega Man X, or just plain X as he's referred in the game, jumps and shoots his way through 8 robot masters and finally confronts the main villain Sigma in a handful of very difficult levels. Mega Man X has quite elaborate storyline when compared to the older Mega Man titles released on the NES. The X universe introduces a whole different breed of robots and robot masters, as X has to fight against robot masters that take their inspiration from Animal Kingdom. Archaeologist named Dr. Kane discovers ruins of a robot research facility, and in one of the capsules is X running his diagnostics. Thrilled by his discovery, Dr. Kane decided to mass produce these new kinds of robots, Reploids, but as you probably guessed, things go south. Soon there's a Reploid uprising, and only the Blue Bomber can stop the rebellion led by Sigma.
Although the game has a much elaborate storyline than in other Mega Man games, in all honesty, probably no one plays these games because of the narrative. It's nice that the game has something to say, but every single Mega Man game relies on gameplay, and this is where Mega Man X shines. The game takes every single good aspect of the Prime series and mixes them with well-thought reforms. Mega Man X is a game design masterpiece.
Everyone who has ever played Mega Man games knows the basics. There are 8 robot masters which need to be dealt with, and then there's the fortress levels of the main villain. Mega Man X is just like all other Mega Man games in this regard. Once defeated, Mega Man gains the special abilities of each robot masters, which are then added to the weapon arsenal. Each robot master is weak to a certain ability, and figuring out the correct order to defeat the bosses introduces a puzzle element that wraps around the run-and-gun platforming. This is also part of the core structure of every Mega Man game. While the game series can be seen as action platformers, figuring out the best way to defeat the robot masters introduces an element to the gameplay which reminds of a puzzle game. Mega Man X takes these puzzle elements further than the original series. Instead of just gaining the special abilities and using them to defeat other bosses, there's upgrades and special equipment to be found in each level. Upgrades aren't just cosmetics. For example, the upgraded boots found in Chill Penguin's level alter the very foundation how the game is played. At first, X moves like Mega Man on the NES. The only difference is X's ability to jump on walls. But when the boot upgrade is found, X can dash by double tapping the gamepad in the desired direction. The tempo of the game becomes much faster as dash connects to wall jumps. In this way, new players are eased into the new game series. At first, new characters are introduced, but controls remain the same. A little bit later, as the core gameplay is familiar, the game starts to add layers to it. Armor upgrade halves the damage taken from enemies, and the upgraded hand cannon, or X-Buster, grants the ability to charge special weapons, in similar manner as the normal X-Buster. Every special weapon has a distinct charge shot. For example, Sting Chameleon's 3-way spike shot grants invulnerability for a short time, and Chill Penguin's weapon shoots icy platforms which can't be jumped on. There are hidden heart containers in each level which add maximum health. There's also 4 sub-tanks which can be filled with health pellets and used whenever the health meter is running low. These upgrades and items aren't mandatory to complete the game, but thanks to them the end credits are a lot more easier to achieve. They also function as another level of puzzle mechanics. In order to reach them, player must first gather the special weapons needed to overcome certain obstacles. On top of this, gathering all the items and upgrades, player needs to master the gameplay. This puzzle-like metagame works also as a tutorial of sorts. The puzzle elements don't just revolve around the upgrades and correct sequence of bosses and their weaknesses. Completing one level sometimes changes circumstances in others. For example, if player ventures to Flame Mammoth's level before defeating Chill Penguin, X needs to deal with fire and flames. After flying through the ice stage, the fires have been extinguished and defeating the Mammoth level becomes much easier. When compared to the earlier Mega Man games, X is a lot more layered experience, and it offers several different strategies to defeat the 8 robot masters. The different puzzle elements are in balance, and figuring out all the possible routes to complete the game is very compelling.
Versatile gameplay in Mega Man X is an achievement to be proud of. The game design is somewhat flawless as it remains loyal to the original Mega Man, but at the same time Mega Man X creates something original. Balancing the new and the old isn't an easy task, but the developers at Capcom were able to pull this off.
The creator of original Mega Man, Keiji Inafune, has stated that the development of Mega Man X started with the idea of an original game that would maintain the fundamentals of the original games but would break away from it in terms of content and storyline. Originally, the game would have introduced Zero as the main character. This ponytailed robot in red armor became a side character as Inafune and other members of the team feared backlash from the fans. Mega Man X was designed by Hayato Kaji. In previous Mega Man titles, Inafune designed the protagonist while Kaji designed supporting characters. But in Mega Man X, the roles were reversed. Kaji has stated that he had difficulties creating X as Super Nintendo offered a lot broader color palette than NES. The idea for upgradable armor was derived from role-playing games. Inafune has stated that the action-oriented Mega Man games have always had elements from role-playing games in form of special weapons. The armor parts were added to the game to supplement this concept. Other distinguishing factor in regards of the original series is boss design. In all the other Mega Man games, the robot masters are men, but in Mega Man X, the developers wanted to break the formula by introducing animal-like androids. As in all other Mega Man games, X has a kick-ass soundtrack, but it too differs a lot from the original NES titles. Score composed mainly by Setsuo Yamamoto is a reminiscent of rock and metal music. Mega Man X is in many regards more edgier version of the Blue Bomber, but this can be seen or rather heard especially in the soundtrack. The game was released to a commercial and critical success. Players as well as the critics were impressed with the game design as well as the audio visuals. Mega Man X became a game series in the vein of the original games, but none of the sequels could recapture the feel of the first game. After Mega Man X8 was released on PlayStation 2 in 2004, the series went silent. After the release of Mega Man 11 in 2018, the fans have been waiting for a sequel to the X series. But at the moment, the edgier brother of the original Blue Bomber has to settle for the 2 Legacy collections released for modern platforms in the same year as Mega Man 11.
Mega Man X is one of the crown jewels of the Super Nintendo's game library. The game is still a joy to play as it controls like a charm and the versatile gameplay keeps you engaged. It is the best Mega Man game ever released as it takes all the good from the NES formula and adds new elements to the mix. Everything is balanced to near perfection and I can't think of anything I would change in the game. The game is widely available for different platforms as it was included in the Super Nintendo Mini Console as well as Mega Man X Collection released for modern platforms in 2018. If you consider yourself a fan of platformers and haven't played the original Mega Man X, do yourself a favor and get the game immediately. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. But hey, that's enough of running, gunning and platforming for one day. As usual, the race was hard and tire was bad. Until next time, Kuorikoski out.